My name is Margaret Collins. I am 59 years old, a widow, and I live in a quiet neighborhood in Oregon. For almost 20 years, I have worked as an office manager at a law firm. My life has been steady, predictable, and focused on raising my two children, Emily and Luke. Emily just turned 32, and Luke is 29. Most of my adult life has been about making sure they never face the struggles I did. I thought that was my purpose. But last Tuesday, one email changed everything. It came from Emily. There was no subject line, just her name. I smiled when I first saw it, expecting a short note or a cheerful update. Just weeks earlier, we had spoken about her wedding plans, and I had already contributed $30,000 to help with the venue, the photographer, and the florist she adored since college. But the smile faded as soon as I opened her message. There was no warmth in her greeting, just one word, Mom. She wrote that after much discussion with her fiancé Andrew and his family, they had finalized the guest list for their ceremony in Napa Valley. They had decided it would be best if I attended through livestream, not in person. Andrew's mother, she explained, wanted to keep the event intimate, and at the very end of the email, she added a line that cut deep. If you want to be part of it, you can watch through the Google Meet link we've set up. It'll be just like being there. LOL. I stared at the screen in silence. My coffee grew cold. I didn't cry, and my hands didn't shake. Something inside me shifted quietly, like the ground beneath me cracked open, but I was still standing. I typed 4 words in response. Sure. Enjoy your big day, no emotion, no argument, just withdrawal. I knew those 4 words would echo louder than any long reply. That was the day I realized something painful. The sacrifices I had made for my daughter no longer seemed to matter to her. That Tuesday became the moment everything started to change. The drive to work was quiet. The Oregon air still carried the chill of early spring, but I barely noticed. My mind replayed the same question over and over. How did it come to this? I have worked at Caldwell Walker Law for 18 years. It's not glamorous, but it's steady. And I needed steady after losing my husband so suddenly when the kids were still teenagers. I remember nights standing in the laundry room, bills spread across the counter, trying to figure out how to cover groceries and Emily's college deposit at the same time. Back then, I gave up weekends, extra hours, vacations, even birthdays. I told myself there would be time for me later. That time never came. Every extra dollar went to Emily and Luke. When Emily switched majors twice and needed more credits, I paid. When she moved to New York for a short-lived job, I covered her deposit and her flight. When heartbreak left her crying at 27, I flew across the country to hold her hand and make her tea. When Luke wanted to buy a house with his fiancée, I co-signed the mortgage and wrote a $10,000 check without hesitation. I never kept score. I thought that's what mothers were meant to do. But that email from Emily made me feel like nothing more than a transaction, as if my usefulness had expired. At the office, my boss Robert stopped by my desk. He's the kind of man who remembers small details, like how you take your coffee. He set a latte on my desk and said, "You look like you've seen a ghost." I wanted to tell him that my daughter had disinvited me from her wedding, but instead I forced a smile and said I hadn't slept well. He didn't press further. That simple kindness nearly undid me. After the noise inside my head all morning, it reminded me that I still mattered, even if only quietly. By lunchtime, my phone started buzzing. Emily again. Texts, calls, voicemails. "Mom, please answer." This isn't funny. I ignored them all. For the first time in my life, I wondered what would happen if I stopped being the one who always answered. That afternoon, I made a decision that changed everything. I wasn't going to scream or beg or argue. I was going to act. Instead of going home, I drove to First Federal Bank. The branch manager, Carlos, had helped me for years with everything from college funds to retirement planning. He greeted me with his usual smile. "Mrs. Collins, what can I do for you today?" I sat down calm but firm. "I need to cancel a wire transfer." "The one to the Napa venue?" he asked. "Yes, that one." He looked surprised. "Are you sure?" "It's a large amount." "I'm sure." That transfer was supposed to be $50,000, on top of the $30,000 I had already sent. $80,000 in total, for a wedding I was not even allowed to attend. Carlos confirmed the cancellation just in time. I signed the papers and left the bank without hesitation. By the time I got home, there were 9 missed calls from Emily and 2 from Luke. One voicemail said, "Mom, please don't do this." I turned off my phone. opened a bottle of red wine I had been saving for a holiday Emily once canceled last minute, and sat on the porch as the evening sun faded. Memories came rushing back. Birthdays I planned alone, holiday dinners where I waited for a call that never came, shoes I never bought, vacations I never took, cars I drove for over a decade. Also, my children would never feel the weight I carried. And now, Andrew's mother, a woman who barely knew Emily, had more influence over her wedding than I did. That thought burned quietly inside me. Later that night, the doorbell rang. It was Luke, still in his work clothes, tie loosened, phone in hand. He stepped inside quickly. "Mom, why aren't you answering your phone?" "Emily's freaking out." I stayed calm. "Hello to you too." He sighed and began pacing. "She says you're not coming to the wedding, that you're being difficult." I laughed quietly. Difficult? For not attending a wedding I was uninvited from? Luke shifted uncomfortably. "Andrew's parents are footing most of the bill. You know how traditional they are." I raised an eyebrow. "Traditional? I already paid $30,000. I was about to send $50,000 more. That's not tradition. That's a business deal." He froze. "Wait, you were sending another 50? "Was," I said calmly. "Not anymore." His face turned pale. "Mom, they're counting on that. The venue, the food, not my problem anymore," I replied. His voice rose. "Of course it's your problem. She's your daughter, and I am her mother," I answered softly. A mother who was told to stay home and watch from a screen. That was when he snapped. "You always make everything about yourself." Something inside me broke free. "Get out of my house." "What?" "You heard me, Luke. Get out." He stared at me, stunned. "Mom, no," I said firmly but quietly. "I've given everything I had, and I'm done being the villain in a story I wrote with love." Luke stood frozen for a moment, then turned and walked out. The door clicked shut behind him. It sounded louder than any slam. I stood in my living room, heart pounding, and realized something astonishing. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of missed calls and frantic messages from Emily. At first, they were sharp and guilt-filled. "Mom, why are you doing this? This is childish." Then the tone shifted. "The venue just called. The payment didn't go through. We are going to lose everything if we don't pay by tomorrow. Andrew's parents are furious. They said this proves they were right about you." At 3 in the morning, she sent another. "I don't understand why you're doing this to me." I sipped my coffee and smiled. Of course, she didn't understand. My sacrifices had always been woven so tightly into her life that she never questioned where the stability came from. She just assumed it would always be there, that I would always be there. But not this time. Later that morning, while I was reviewing contracts at my desk, another email appeared in my inbox. The subject line read, "Please don't ruin my wedding." I opened it without expectation. "Mom," she wrote, "I know you're upset about the livestream situation, but this is extreme. We've lost the venue deposit, and if we don't pay the balance today, the caterer will back out too. Andrew's parents are beyond upset. They're saying you can't be reasoned with. Please don't do this. We can talk about you attending the ceremony, but we need the funds first." There it was. Not an apology, not reflection, a negotiation. As if my presence at my own daughter's wedding could be bought or sold depending on how generous I was willing to be. I closed the email without replying. Around noon, my boss Robert appeared again. "Lunch?" he asked gently. "That new Italian place just opened." Normally, I would have declined, but something shifted in me. Maybe it was the clarity of the past 24 hours. Maybe it was the realization that I needed to sit with someone who didn't ask anything from me. I said yes. Over pasta, Robert told me about his grandchildren, about the joy and exhaustion of chasing them around. Then he paused and studied me. "Forgive me, Margaret, but you seem lighter today." I surprised myself. I told him everything. The email, the canceled transfer, the confrontation with Luke, the silence that followed. When I finished, he didn't scold me or try to fix it. He simply said, "Sometimes the hardest part of love is setting boundaries, especially with the people we've given the most to." He reached across the table, gave my hand a brief squeeze, and said, "I think you did the right thing." For the first time in a long time, I believed it too. When I returned home that evening, the sky was dim and the porch light flicked on automatically. Everything looked still, almost peaceful. But someone was waiting on my steps. It was Sophia, Emily's best friend since childhood. I hadn't seen her in years, but she rose quickly when she saw me. "Mrs. Collins," she said softly. "I'm sorry to just show up." I let her in and put the kettle on. She looked around my kitchen with the eyes of someone revisiting old memories. "Emily sent you?" I finally asked. She hesitated. "She's a mess. They lost the venue. The florist dropped out. Andrew's parents are threatening to cancel everything. She doesn't know what to do. She knows she messed up. She just doesn't know how to fix it." I handed her a mug of tea. "Is that why you're here? To fix it?" Sophia shook her head. "No, I came to ask. Is there anything she can say to change your mind?" I thought for a long moment. Would an apology erase the sting of being excluded? Of being treated like a bank account instead of a mother? Would it undo years of feeling invisible? Finally, I shook my head. "No, there isn't." Sophia's shoulders sagged. "Not even if she apologizes?" "Words are easy," I said quietly, "especially when people are desperate. But the people who love you don't wait until you cut them off to see you." Sophia nodded slowly, eyes lowered to her cup. "I get it, even if she doesn't." She didn't stay long. She didn't argue. She just hugged me gently and left. For the first time, I closed the door not just on her, but on a version of myself I had outgrown. The wedding never happened as they planned. They scrambled for alternatives. But without the money I had once promised, venues were too expensive or already booked. In the end, they held a small backyard ceremony with a handful of relatives and Andrew's parents. I wasn't invited, and for the first time, I didn't need to be. Weeks later, Emily sent one more email. It was long, part apology, part justification. I read it once and then archived it. I wasn't angry anymore. I was simply done. There is a peace that comes with letting go, not in rage, but in clarity. For the first time in decades, I woke up without wondering who needed something from me. I wasn't bracing myself for guilt wrapped as love. I made a new rule for myself. If my presence is negotiable, then so is my effort. Now I go to work. I read novels. I join a pottery class. I have dinner with friends who see me for who I am, not for what I can give them. And I've learned something I wish I had known years ago. You don't have to burn yourself to keep others warm. Sometimes, the strongest kind of love is the one you finally give to yourself.